200-acre campus in the heart of Midtown.
Visit our new buildings.
Scott Chemistry.
Danto Engineering.
Wayne Law Ski Center.
The Towers.
See our classic buildings. McGregor.
School of Business. Apprentice.
Old Main.
The Freer House.
Visit the nation's largest single-campus medical school.
See where we perform. The Hillberry.
Saver Hall. The Bonsdale.
The Alice.
Visit a premier research university.
Schedule a tour of our campus.
Because one visit to Wayne State can lead to a lifetime of opportunities.
Morning, everybody. Good morning. Thank you for coming. That last guy's good, isn't he? He's something. Welcome and happy Warrior Wednesday. I see there's some green in the crowd, and we'll just keep rolling and learning as we go along. If you wouldn't mind, please silence your cell phones or put them on vibrate. Thank you for that. Today's program will be a little bit different than we've done in the past. It's going to be primarily Q&A, but we have some guest speakers. The president will make some short opening remarks, and we have Professor Anka Vlasopoulos here, who will be introduced a little bit later to read some of her poetry. Then we'll begin the question and answer session, and Professor Lou Romano will be joining President Gilmour up on the stage. Questions are going to come from three sources: from online, from Twitter, and from you folks. So please don't be bashful. When they're sitting up here, it's great to have a question come in. They don't want to stare out at the audience, and we don't want to make the things up. So please feel comfortable. We'll have microphones in both aisles. What's the Twitter hashtag? Hashtag for the people out there in streaming land, hashtag WSU Town Hall. We'll bring Twitter right to Jessica, and she'll feed those questions to me, and I'll feed them to the professor. So before I turn this over to our president, live streaming is good? Sound, picture, all that? Great. Love to hear that. So let me bring up our 11th president for Wayne State University, Allan Gilmour, our leader, who is making one heck of a great difference at Wayne State University. President Gilmour?
Good morning. Thanks for coming. Problem number one, I didn't wear my green tie. And it's a little late to change it, I guess. Number two, thank you, Michael, for that introduction. I am reminded, and I think I probably said it in this group before, of the old line, if my father would have heard it, he would have been proud. If my mother would have heard it, she would have believed it. Questions first have come up, of course, about how I feel. Thank you for the support that I've received in the last couple of months. The treatment still has to go 17 more times. Not that I'm keeping track. The doctors think things are right on path. As I mentioned when I sent out an email, I come to the office every day. We won't describe the hours, but they would embarrass bankers. They're so short. I've narrowed my focus, which is a surprise to some because they didn't realize I had one. But I am also following a very simple rule. If it's hard or unpleasant, I delegate it. But I do like, therefore, what I'm doing these days. One of the good things is that while I'm lingering or malingering, or whatever the right word is, the place is making good progress. And a lot of good people throughout this university are making progress on the critical areas that we've talked about over the last 20 months or so that I've been here. We're not done. In some of the areas, I think probably in all the areas, we've still got a distance to go. In some of them, a long way to go. But we're moving ahead. And if someone asks me these days, how do I describe what's going on at this university, I say, we're moving ahead. And I want to mention three people who are leading the moving ahead, members of our board who are here. Annetta Meller is here, Eugene Drecker is here, Paul Masseron is here. Thank you for coming. Well, somehow we're coming to the end of another year that seems to have sailed by, doesn't it, rather quickly, while we're doing important things. We're coming to the end of the semester. Commencement is just around the corner. It will be at Ford Field. It will be on the 7th of May. There will be plenty of seats. Ford Field is not short of seats. The Romney meeting showed that. I think spring is almost here. So let's back up a little and see what's been going on. Last month, I gave the same talk twice in a great surge of efficiency, first to the Canton Chamber of Commerce and then to the Birmingham Community House. And what I did was structure the comments in a Q&A format, because I know that people have questions about higher education in general, like why does it cost so much, and about Wayne State and the stuff that they read or hear about Wayne State in the press or on TV or whatever. And so I thought we would do some of the same today and answer your questions. Now, I posed the questions in these two talks I gave, which makes it much easier to give the answers when you know what the question is, and you can write it down. You may recall way back when we were on this stage, and the first one of these meetings I had was a Q&A format. And Jim Hartway was the Qer, and I was the dodger. I was here only a short time and thought, I don't really know a lot about Wayne State, but let's see what people want to know about, and we can talk about those sorts of things and promise to talk about more as time passes. But before we get there, let me just start with a few things that I'd like to mention, regardless of what's going to come up in the questions. I'm proud of what we've done. I'm proud of what's going on, but we've got things to talk about. Number one, what's the story with the state appropriation? What's the story with the budget? The good news is, I guess, it's not as bad as last year. Compared with what we got granted, legislated, approved, whatever, last year, $182 million. We'll be up this year, depending on whether it's the governor, the House, or the Senate, and there'll be some sort of a compromise, somewhere between $1 and $3.5 million. So we're not going down, but we're going up a very small amount. And it's one-time money, so we can't build it into the base for the next year and the year after, so we're back to our $182 million base. Is it adequate to run this place? No. So what do we have to do between now and roughly the 1st of July? Number one, we've got to make our best estimates possible on what our enrollment is going to be. Now, our applications are up, and quite a lot. Our admissions are up, but it's too early to tell what's happening to our enrollment. And a second issue, and you may have read about this just recently, the Federal Department of Education has changed the rules on federal loans, principally the Pell Grants. I shouldn't say federal loans, federal money, principally the Pell Grants. And so that students have to be evaluated at the end of each semester, not at the end of each year. And if they're falling behind, they have to have a program that gets them back on track. If they don't get back on track, the money's cut off. And so that may affect our enrollment, and I urge all of us, wherever we are, excuse me, in the university, to help students who need help, because this is important. Obviously, it's important for enrollment, but it's important for the students. We don't want a whole bunch of students who can't make it through here, and so we need to be paying very careful attention to that. Operations. You know that we hired the Huron Consulting Group a year or so ago. They've done very good work, and we've made good progress. This is on the administrative processes and systems, HR, facilities, admissions, IT, and others. We're going to save some money, but more importantly, we're going to do a better job. Our service to our students and to our faculty, to each other, will be better, because we'll have better systems. We'll have measures to know whether we are doing a good job or not, rather than just asking ourselves. Next item, as you know, at the March board meeting, the Board of Governors approved a new admissions process, which is designed to help student success as measured by retention and graduation rates. This was not an easy change, because there were some groups who believed that we were trying to make this a more exclusive university. That is not the case. we were trying to make this a university of opportunity, as it always has been, and bring in the students who can succeed here and succeed with the very best assistance and help we can give them. And so we are improving our advising, we're improving our counseling, we're improving our financial aid. We have a new approach to admissions that is much more holistic, to use that word, which means we consider a lot of things and have a lot more people involved in that. How will this work? I think it's going to work fine. I do want to mention one thing, however, that people have been concerned about or misinterpreted. We do not have a capacity problem at Wayne State University. We can take all the good students that can succeed and prosper by being here. So we are not leaving people out when we let other people in. Now, that's not true probably in the medical school. That may not be true in a couple of the other professional schools or programs. But on the whole, certainly at the undergraduate level, we've got the capacity. And we've got our recruiters going right out, much more so in the past than they have in the past, to the high schools, the counselors, in Detroit, in the suburbs, and in Grand Rapids and places like this to bring in students who we think would succeed in this place. Next item, you saw, I hope anyway, a big blurb in Cranes this week about our MBRB, our Multidisciplinary Biomedical Research Building. We are looking for philanthropy to help pay for this, and the first person that gives a lot of money can change the name from MBRB to something else. The second person, I hope, is the state of Michigan with $30 million, because this is one of the projects included in the governor's budget. And we expect that this will be approved, and we will know by the 1st of June whether we're getting these resources or not. This is an exciting project. It is the first big project in the medical school in terms of research facilities since 1998, I believe. It helps Midtown. It's located nicely between Henry Ford Health System and the DMC. It will provide capacity so that we can increase the size of the faculty in the medical school doing research. That will help us get more grants. This is something that I'm very excited about. Now, let me go to one that isn't quite as much in money, but another big success in athletics. Our women's swimming and diving team is Division II national champion. I mentioned commencements at Ford Field. The speaker is Jerry Leninger, who is an astronaut, a graduate of the medical school. So, compared with having me speak, as we've had the last times, we're really a real person, so to speak. And compared with the Mathi facility, and I use the term facility loosely, we're changing leagues. I hear from people that the Wayne Way is going, but we've got further to go. And so when you see things that need to be fixed, number one, if you can fix them yourself, please do so. Number two, if you need help, please say so, because the Wayne Way needs to go way, way away. Now, let me just mention a couple of other people who have been prominent recently. You may have seen Chief Tony Holt on television, Channel 4. He does a terrific job with our police force. Tony, please stand up. He's sitting in the back row. First, he's got darn good people. And second, our Center for Urban Studies is using the ComSat concept, if you will, which essentially measures where crime is. And that's the very best place to put the policemen, where the crime is, rather than where we think it might be or where we'd like to see them. So we have a safe campus. Now, are we always worried? Of course we're always worried. We're always worried that there'll be some sort of a crisis and we'll be, have to spring into action instantly. But we have a crisis team, and it rehearses, and it does mock exercises. So we are doing our best to be ready for whatever may come. If you see anything worrisome, please say so. Because I think we've seen in other campuses where there were crises, people didn't speak up, when perhaps it would have been a good idea, perhaps when it would have been a good idea if they had done so. And I want to thank Lou Romano for coming today and joining us. As you know, he's professor of chemistry. He's also president of the Academic Senate. He's deeply involved, obviously, in the shared governance of this place. And he brings an academic perspective, which is so important, because that's what this place is all about. And finally, let me recognize, as Michael did, Anka Vasopoulos, a professor of English, who will join us in just a second. She's a member of the Academic Senate also. She's a leader in the union. She's a novelist. She's a poet. And she's also a professor of English. And she comes today, number one, because we wanted her to. But number two, she's just been awarded the 2012 Murray E. Jackson Creative Scholar in Arts Award. And what else? She's received the Board of Governors Faculty Award. She's received the President's Award for Excellence in Teaching, the Award for the Outstanding Graduate Mentor, the Board of Governors Lifetime Achievement Award, the YMCA National Writers Voice Writers Award for Creative Nonfiction, which reminded me of my checking account. Anka, congratulations on all these. And she is going to share some poetry in just a moment. So thank you, Anka, for coming today. Let me introduce Professor Anka Vasopoulos. Anka?
Thank you very much, President Gilmour, and I'm gratified to be the recipient of the Murray E. Jackson Award. I knew Murray, and his wife and then widow was a colleague of mine in the English department. I was going to read a poem that Catherine Lindbergh liked, but on the way in, I changed my mind because I was listening to NPR, and I heard about the collusion between the Patriarch of the Orthodox Church in Russia and Vladimir Putin in punishing a group of women called the Pussy Riot Band for performing a raunchy song in the Cathedral of Our Savior. And I thought how the collusion of men in power and whatever God they imagine to exist is very old. I wrote this poem a long time ago. It's from my first collection, Penguins in a Warming World. And it has to do with my rereading of the book of Job from the perspective of someone who's not mentioned except very much in passing. Women seem to be fighting the same fight over and over, not to become chattel. And it also, this poem includes a story that my mother told me about her coming back from Auschwitz and seeing a man whom she knew from before, who had lost his entire family there, who came back to the little town where they had been deported from, and would stand for hours in front of what was his former house. This is called The Daughter of Job. One of them, doesn't matter which, we were all nameless. Call me Miriam the bitter, if you wish. Whence do I speak, I dead before living? What do you know of the Leviathan surging over wave humps, cleaving water and air like lava escaped through fissures beneath the ocean floor, other than your hook and your spear making the deep boil with blood? If I said, would you, who know nothing of the roll call of stars and the rent garment of mother's milk in the sky, but who trod on the face of the moon and mined earth's womb, understand? You have taken even my suffering, even my fiery death, and made it into your story, the story of your redemption. You who were there and saw me carted away and smelled the smoke of my flesh, and you who made ovens the likes of ovens for bread, and you who let them bake our daily death, know that I speak from beyond the gates, that the doors of the shadow of death swing, that I come to question your covenant. Does a daughter replace a daughter, a wife, the same as the rams and bullocks and camels and sheep and the 1,000 she-asses? How didn't you rise out of your ashes and dust and stand up to him and say, I spit on your gifts, give me back what you took, for Kezia the comely does not replace Miriam. They're not two of the same, the peahen of goodly wing and the unicorn who will not serve. And if one or more of each are the same, why do you stand, riveted for hours on end, before the lighted window of your first house, now broken by other shadows? Why are you always late for the love offering at your new house, made by another wife, set by another child? Thank you. This other poem has to do with a sort of very casual crimes against ourselves and the nature that we're supposed to be in. And I was coming in today, walking to the library from the parking lot, and there were these big machines cutting grass, and the people writing them had some kind of earplugs, but the rest of us didn't. This is called Lost in Modernity. It used to be full-breasted, open-bloused summer, reclined upon the cusp of July, August, spinning out of her many-teated self strands of cotton candy, shielding us like mother's palm against fierce rays, sugaring our days, filled with long silences, pierced by alarm-like peeps of fledglings, exoskeleton, cicada, danse macabre. We devour her globes of plenitude, tomatoes, apricots, nectarines, tiny raspberry cups, green of honeydew, sunset of cantaloupes. But now, as she lies profligately spending her last, waning each day before our eyes, we drill her silences, infect the plume of sugared air each minute of each day. Motorboats, motorbikes, jet skis, chainsaws, mowers, hedgers, trimmers, power washers, now that nothing seems to be made or tamed by hand. Her body, ruptured to shards, still spins haphazard strands like tattered spider webs, whose sweetness we taste, if at all, in scorching, violent haste. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. It's going to be a tough act to follow. I'd now like to bring up Professor Lou Romano, who is, as President Gilmour mentioned, is president of the Academic Senate and chair of the Budget Committee as well. Professor Romano joined Wayne State in 1980 as an assistant professor following postdoctoral work at Harvard Medical School, where he received a National Institutes of Health postdoctoral fellowship and was a Medical Foundation Fellow. He's had continuous NIH funding since joining Wayne State. He was advisor for 36 graduate students and 25 PhDs were awarded. He also received the Board of Governors Distinguished Faculty Award in 2011. Professor Romano?
Thanks, Michael. Well, this is a pleasure.
Well, welcome. Here we go, huh?
Yeah. You touched on a lot of the questions that are on my list, so some of these will be follow-ups to those, I guess. And the first one was probably more important to you than to us, and that's how's your health? And you said it's okay. So a follow-up to that would be, is your health going to affect your plans for retirement?
I don't believe so. I was interested to hear on the radio this morning that Warren Buffett has just been diagnosed with prostate cancer. I had thought, of course, that the Buffett rule had caused illness with the rich Republicans, but apparently it caused illness with him as well. It's unpredictable, therefore, Lou, of course, not because I've got prostate cancer any more than anybody else here in the audience or listening in. It's unpredictable, but everything says that I will be all right and continue right on. It's my expectation. Now, with 3 members of the board here, They might have reached a different conclusion after this meeting, but for the moment, my plan is to continue right on.
I guarantee that's not going to happen. So you also mentioned the budget, the state budget, and the lack of generosity towards Wayne State compared with other schools. So a follow-up with that would be based on your estimates for what we're going to get from the state and how much we can raise tuition. Do you anticipate that there'll be any further cuts or layoffs as there were last year?
It's too early to say. I certainly don't want any layoffs. Now, can we guarantee there won't be any? No, we can't. And when I say that, that's not because I've got some secret in my head. We don't have enough facts yet to know. As I started to say when I was commenting before, the first issue, well, first on my list, was enrollment. And we've got to fight hard to be sure that we have as many students here as we can for the fall and for the winter. The second is the tuition question. The state has, or the governor sort of put a limit of 4% in his message, and the Senate put 3.5%. I don't think the House did anything. I may have those reversed, but I don't think so. So compared with what we've seen in the past year or two, I would guess the tuition increases will be lower than we've seen. The third thing that is bothersome is what's going on with inflation. I just saw in the paper that the CPI is up 2.7% from a year ago. Now that's, C stands for consumer, that's not what we pay, because what we pay is probably worse. And the reason is that housing makes up a fairly substantial part of the consumer price index. And we know what's happened to house prices, and on the whole, we know what's happened to rental rates, although they've started to go up for apartments from where they were. And so if you take that out, you're seeing a lot of commodity inflation. We don't buy many commodities, but they go into the stuff that we do buy. So we've got that to be concerned about. Finally, we're going back to Huron Group, but also our own work. We've got to do whatever we can to be sure that we're as effective and efficient all the way through the place as we can. We're going to ask the deans and the heads of the various divisions to give us, our budget oversight group, a list of cuts that add to 3% of this year's actual cost, forecasted actual cost. This is not an across-the-board 3% cut. This is a shopping list that Ron Brown and I have talked about so that we can look and see where we think cuts can be made. Because there will have to be some cuts, because whatever the state's going to give us, an increase of as much as $3.5 million is not a big number, to put it mildly. If we just had cost inflation of 2% of a budget of $550 million, there's $11 million we'd have to be covering, so you have to think about the tuition in there. So this is going to be harder in some ways than last year, because last year it was darn clear it was going to be 15% coming from the state, and the tuition was not going to go up more than 6.9 or 7.1, whatever that number was, 7.1, I guess, and that was it. But we don't know that much from the state this time. So we'll be working with everybody, and we realize this will be hard for everyone as well. It's a lot more fun when things go up. The business leaders from Michigan have been doing a very good job of saying to the public and to the governor and to the legislature that Michigan's appropriation, the state appropriation, is about $1 billion lower than it should be. We used to be a top 10 school in terms of top 10 set of schools, universities, and in terms of state support, we're now a bottom 10. We need to get back to be a top 10 if we're going to have the kind of state and the kind of economy and society that we want here. Well, the governor's budget was an increase of $36 million for all 15 state universities. Well, 36 is a long way from $1 billion. So we stopped going down, but now we've got to keep working inside and do our best to convince the decision makers, the influential people in this state, that higher education is an asset, not a cost, and the one that needs more money.
Yeah, no doubt about that. A related question that came in from Twitter is, we don't have anywhere close to the final enrollment numbers for next fall, but can you give us an estimate based on applications or?
Well, the applications, as I mentioned, are up, which is good. Our admissions are up, both graduate and undergraduate. And it's too early to tell. Enrollment started, Rob, please, at the beginning of the month? About 3 or 4 weeks ago. And, we allow the people to enroll essentially until the time comes along. And let me add to that, because we did such a good job this last year, and we doesn't include me, but you did such a good job on transfer students from community colleges. We had more transfers in community colleges last year than we had incoming freshmen. And that's not bad. I want incoming freshmen. But in particular, if we can get students who have had a community college experience, good. Because they've had some acclimation to higher education. They probably have been able to live at home and save money, things like this. And so this is a good group to have come in. So we're working very much on that. But as I alluded to before, the federal changes in the federal money is a risk for us.
There is. Does the audience have any questions? Raise your hand. We have 2 microphones. I don't want to dominate the conversation here. Quiet, respect. We got one in the center here. Of course, it's always in the center.
That's right, which is the easier side to get to. Right.
It's on. It's on.
Testing. Hi. Good morning.
Good morning.
First of all, we are glad that your health is good and you will be continuing to serve as the best president, I should say. Okay. My concern and question is, all the time we have been talking about cuts and cuts. State cuts, and then naturally president has to make cuts. And so then the cuts come to the departments or the colleges. But never we see any time, whether it is state government or federal government or even the universities, where is the money being wasted? Okay? I have a strong feeling, and I have been repeatedly telling my colleagues, that if we can try to get the wastage and efficiency improved in the university, I think then we can face all those cuts very easily. But all the time, we are generally in the universities worried about how much money is coming and how much money is spending, but we have never been concerned about how much wastage has been going on and how much inefficiency is there in the system. So I would very much request you to have some commission or a committee so that we could see that where is the wastage. I need not point out, the different things, because if I point out, it's a complaint against the individual things. So, but I would very much request that if we avoid the wastage in the university, probably we can face all the cuts.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. As I mentioned, it was a year ago that we, we hired the Huron Consulting Group to do just what you said on the administrative side of the university. And that work is not all done yet, but it is largely done. And they identified a shopping list, and this won't all happen, but a shopping list of $15 to $20 million of annual cuts in the university. And we're working on those to see how much of those we can do and how much we can do when. They have now taken on another project for us, which is to analyze the efficiency and the effectiveness of our research administration activity. The provost is leading an effort to look at programs that have very small enrollment and to see whether we should be continuing those. Some of them have small enrollment for very good reasons because they're very narrowly defined but important subjects. Others have very low enrollment because people don't want to be involved in it. And so we're taking a look at that also. But it's a good question, and I appreciate the comment.
Here's a question that just came in from live stream, and this is something that I'm interested in. Will a retirement package be offered this year as last year?
Only for old presidents.
Oh, no.
I don't think so, Lou. I think last year's was something that we should have done. It proved to be more complicated, and I think to some extent more disruptive than I had thought it would be, because I wasn't aware of all of the tales that came along. So I think for the time being, we'll recover from that one.
Well, you could just offer it to faculty, and we'd be...
Oh, okay.
Okay, here's something that you also touched on, the new admissions standard and the holistic approach. And a follow-up to that would be, what measures will be used to determine if these standards are actually working?
The measures are still being put together, but there are going to be two kinds of measures, what I'll call the input measures and the output measures. What are the input measures? As part of a retention work that Ron and I inherited, but he brought to a conclusion, we're adding advisors. How many advisors are we adding when, and what is their training? What is the training of the existing advisors we have? So we'll be measuring that. The counseling center has not been as effective as it should be. It has new leadership. It needs more people in there. We've got to figure out how many people, when, again, the training of those kinds of people. We've talked about admissions and reaching out to be sure that we pick up all the good people from whatever background they may come from, all the good people we can find. We've got a new plan for admissions in terms of the admissions officers visiting, and for us entertaining, incidentally, counselors here on campus so they can see what the place looks like as well as what we look like. We'll be measuring things like that. We are redoing financial aid to be sure that we get the maximum bang for the buck. We'll be measuring that. Then on the output side, it'll be simpler. We'll be measuring retention, how many freshmen become sophomores, how many sophomores become juniors, et cetera, and graduation rates. We're going to add, incidentally, and I don't know if my colleagues know this because I'm making it up now, we're going to add to the 6-year graduation rate measure. Some of you may say, why 6 years? Because it is a federal standard, federal measure. I don't mean they say you get to do it in 6 years, but the U.S. government and the states follow it, and so we're going to follow it too. Well, I've told so many people this story. At the last commencement in December, a woman crossed the stage and said, I'm 63 years old. I dropped out for 30 years, but I came back. And I was as proud of her as I was the 21 or the 22-year-old or the 26-year-old graduating. And so we know, for example, if we measured our 10-year graduation rate, that it would be 10 to 11 percentage points higher than our 6-year graduation rate. So we're going to measure those kinds of things. Now, whether we're going to get rewarded in Lansing, we will get rewarded in heaven, but Lansing comes first. We'll see how that works out. But I want to add those kinds of measures to our graduation rate.
Yeah, I've read that if you actually look at the 10-year graduation rate for Wayne, it's not so bad.
It's not bad at all. That's right, Lou. Yeah.
Any other questions from the audience?
Here's one right here.
President Gilmour, Eva Gogola, Development and Alumni Affairs. You know that last week the Board of Directors of the Alumni Association voted to eliminate membership dues. And
didn't know they did that. Thank
yes,
heaven.
So that happened. And my question to you is if you could, you know, the idea behind that is to increase engagement and communication with the alumni, and I would ask of you if you could give us 3 things that you would request of alumni to do to come back to the university and help. What would those 3 things be?
Well, I suppose, you know, cynically, you'd say money, money, and money. But seriously, you would say money, but not just because we're deserving souls, but let me underline deserving. That we did something for the alumnus, the alumna, the alumni body that was valuable to them, and that they know that the state appropriation doesn't pay for this place, and they know that the tuition doesn't pay for this place, and we get private sources that add into the tens of millions of dollars each year in order to make this a successful university. Beyond that, we want people who understand what we're doing, make comments as to whether they think that's good or bad, and tell other people about it. We want their insights, their comments about the skills that we provide, the training we provide, the education we provide. We want their service on boards of visitors, on task forces, things of this, the alumni board itself, the foundation board, things of that kind. When you see the engaged alumni body of some of the universities that have been around years, and just the private ones in particular, you see what valuable assets they are. Now, it's our job to get the valuable assets from the people. I don't think we've done as good a job as we should have in the past, and doing away with dues is one darn good thing of doing it. Why charge someone to participate? We should be welcoming. We are welcoming now their participation. But we're going to reach out, communicate, and at the same time, listen.
Well, here's a Twitter question that is kind of interesting. The student would like to know why he or she is paying a huge fee for Omnibus that I never use. And by the way, what the heck is Omnibus?
I think I joined that student. I don't know. It is interesting when I come back, I guess it's true after 50 years, to the world of higher education, that there are various fees. Some of the fees are not omnibus fees and are very precise, of course, to the course of action, the course of study that the student is taking, whether it's equipment or things of this kind. An omnibus fee generally gathers up a set of fees into one group that all students, or almost all students, would incur, that are specific charges that the university incurs. But I've just said everything I know about omnibus fees.
I would add that to the student, who, if they're listening, the omnibus fee goes to pay for computers in the library and a lot for the technology that you have on campus. It's used to pay for scientific equipment in the lab. So even though you think you might not use it, you actually do.
And, yeah, it's a good point. Thanks, Lou.
Yeah. There's a question here. Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Richard Lerman from the School of Business. Hopefully this is an easy question. We noticed there's a very nice restaurant being built in the first floor, 5057 Woodward. We know they have a liquor license, and wondering if you could, if you knew what date they were going to be opening.
Right. Well, I'll give a good straight answer, Richard. No, I don't know what date they're going to be open. Where do I find? Open in June. I was told that we have 5 new retail enterprises, either open or opening. We've got an Indian restaurant opening. We've got this barber/salon activity. We've got a yoga place opening. We've got a restaurant down on the forest parking structure in the first level. And I guess I've left out one or so. But a grocery store. Yeah. So things are happening around here.
So there's a question about the multidisciplinary biomedical research building, the MBRB. So you mentioned that it was in this governor's budget, but I think it was in Governor Granholm's budget. I don't think it's in the Snyder budget. I may be wrong.
It is.
It is in Snyder.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is. It was in both. Yeah.
So the question is, how sure are you that we're going to get that money, and what's the backup plan if we don't?
Well, number one, there is no backup plan. Number two, we have been told by state legislators, said to one of my colleagues, this is a month or so ago, start building. What happens, this is all new to me, Lou, in Governor Granholm's, at the end of her administration in December 2010, there was a list put together of the so-called capital outlay projects. And we had ours in there. We had ours in there for $90 million, not for $30 million, because it was going to be a joint venture twice as big and more than twice as big in cost with Henry Ford Health System. Well, Henry Ford Health System decided with other priorities that it could not participate at this point in this facility. So we resized it back down to $93 million, where it is now, and resized the state to $30 million. We submitted to the state appropriate department, whatever it's called, last November, a total write-up supporting the $30 million. The governor's people then reviewed that and included it in the budget that starts the 1st of October, submitted that as part of the budget, the governor's budget package to the Senate and the House, and we are told that this will happen and that the budget, as we read in the paper, will be approved by no later than the 1st of June. If it is not approved, we will have to back up and see what we can do, because the rest of the $93 million, $63 million, needs to come from a combination of debt and philanthropy. And the more philanthropy, of course, the better in that equation. We have some debt capacity, but not a lot. But the $30 million would mean that we'd have to stop and rethink what we'd do. But at this point, we're as confident as we can be that it's on track.
My own question, is the site absolutely fixed? I know there's some political considerations for putting it there, and the interaction with Henry Ford might have suggested that's a good place, but since that may have gone away, is there a chance that it might be better suited to be positioned closer to the science buildings on main campus or closer to the medical school? I mean, it's supposed to be a translational research building, and it seems like if you wanted to encourage basic scientists to participate in this in terms of getting moving towards a clinical outcome, that if you put it near the basic sciences, you might actually get those kind of interactions.
We want to leave it where it is because it is cheaper to use that existing building than to start afresh. We own the building, which we bought when the Cadillac dealership lost its franchise. We own the building adjacent to it, the so-called American Beauty Iron building.
I thought we were going to build a new building.
We are, but it's only 75,000 square feet of the 200, where the existing the used car lot was for the Cadillac dealership. And another thing, and I realize we wanted it adjacent to as many things as possible here, we also wanted it adjacent to Tech Town. And well, we don't know yet what commercialization is going to work coming out of there and Tech Town, but at least we've got that adjacency in there too.
So here's a question about the city of Detroit. Should Wayne State play a role in revitalizing the city, and how do the city's budget problems affect us?
Well, the city's budget problems in the short run, and when I say short means I don't know what the city's budget is going to be, if you will, may or may not affect us. What do we need from the city's services, you will? The fire, we got our own police department, we know that, we talked about it. Fire, EMS, snow removal, a bunch of city services like that we are concerned about. And we will have to see what comes out of the budget. And if inadequate things come out of the budget, we will have to figure out what we can do to be sure that we can run our place the way we want to. What is the best way we can help the city? Number one, the faculty members in this university have all sorts of projects, grants, programs, et cetera, that relate to various parts of the city, the government, the city in total, schools, et cetera. That continues. Beyond that, are there major programs that we should undertake? And one of the things I've found as I've been here now for 20 months is that it is very difficult to bring to big scale a lot of the work that we do, because they're individual projects, and they're important individual projects. But with the city's issue, to some extent, resources have to be put together. It's fairly clear from the budget discussion that we don't have the financial resources to be helping the city in any major way. So it'll be the human and the personnel resources to see. So as we get the budget laid out by the city, and we get the people involved in these various groups, we'll see if there are things that we can do. We've been asked by both the governor and the mayor to keep in mind that they may need to come and ask us to help think through solutions to various kinds of problems, but they haven't done that yet.
All right, we have time for one more question. If there's one from the audience, we can do that, or I can ask a question. Okay. Okay, this is actually my question because it's something we've been thinking about currently and actually thinking about going forward. Can you describe the process that should be used in deciding whether to combine academic units as a way to, there's thought that combining academic units might save budget dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So what process should be used there?
Don't know that I know a terribly good answer, which I'll probably prove. First of all, I think it's clear that the activities have to have some relationship to each other. In other words, we just don't want to say, and I'm making this up as I sit here, we're going to combine the English department and baseball because they'll have one person be dean of English and dean of baseball. That obviously doesn't make sense. So they've got to have an adjacency to them, if you will. Beyond that, I think we then take each one, and you alluded to it in the question, Lou, and see what the possible savings are, and I hope we'd end up with greater strength when we got done.
Do you think this is something the president of the university should decree, or should there be a conversation?
Conversation, because I don't know how to decree it. No. And my answer just proved it, I think. Yeah. But I think it's something that we should be thinking about.
I mean, you mentioned faculty consultation. Certainly that should be a big part of it.
Absolutely, yeah. Because one of the things that I'm excited about in the new research building is the interdisciplinary things. Because over and over we're seeing the old lines, the old silos, to use the bad word, but the old lines of what a discipline was being fuzzy. And you see the same thing, you see it obviously in your department, and how it relates to medicine and pharmacy and things of this kind, and how to put those together. Now, in some places we've seen this is done through centers or institutes. In some places, and I think Ron has strong feelings on this, that what has happened when this is done is more overhead as opposed to necessarily better results. We've had put together a list of, Hillary Ratner led the effort on this, of all our centers and institutes here. And I looked through it, and so it's this thick. And when I got done looking, I thought, this is an interesting collection. And if I could find any common themes, I've since forgotten them. I didn't see much there. And it may be that we want to take use a terrible word, proactive approach and talk with people how we might do some of these things. But
yeah, well, a lot of the funding is we're being forced to be interdisciplinary.
Yes.
NIH is requiring
right.
for many grants to be translational. So,
yeah.
So it's not just for increased knowledge, but it's for increased funding.
Yeah, yeah. And I think both of those are important, the knowledge and the funding. Yeah. Good. Why don't we do one more question, since I don't have any closing remarks to give. I'll try not to prove it.
Okay, here's an easy one.
Good.
That I'm
good.
also that I'm actually curious about. So, can you describe how the decision-making process differs between what you saw in industry and what you see in academia?
By definition, in industry, there's a stronger, I don't mean that in a praise sense or vice versa, a stronger hierarchy of bosses, if you will. As time is passing, we're seeing in industry and in business that gradually diminishing, layers being taken out, greater spans of control, to use that term, more participation, because many in the younger generation want to participate in things that they're not directly responsible for, but don't want to understand why. So as I've mentioned in the past, to some extent, business is coming closer to the academic model as time passes. The thing that concerns me most is speed. I don't think that we as a university have enough sense that we're in competition. I think, obviously, in the grant-seeking sense, you know cold that we're in competition, and you're in competition, your colleagues are, for a fixed amount of money. But I don't know that we've thought seriously enough that we're in competition with the University of Detroit Mercy or the University of Michigan Dearborn or Oakland or Michigan State or Ann Arbor, excuse me, or wherever. I've seen instances since I've been here where we will take a subject and we'll say, well, you know, we'll have this thought through, you know, in a couple of 3 years. And I think the students, if we're changing curriculum, for example, I'm not trying to pick on curriculum, but if we take that, we will have students following a curriculum, that are taking curriculum that might need to be modernized, or we'll have administrative processes that we all find aggravating. It takes too long to fix things compared with the business world. Sometimes that's good, sometimes it's bad. There is, though, to conclude, one very clear common denominator. Any big organization is made up of people. And we will never be better than the faculty and the staff that we have, any more than Ford Motor Company will ever be better than the people leading Ford Motor Company and the engineers, and to spread it out a little bit, the dealers and the suppliers, and the same is true with us. The alumni will be important in the success, for example, of Wayne State University going forward. And so I'm delighted when we do our best to find the best person to fill jobs around here. We do not want to do this just because I'm here, why don't you give me the job? Obviously, most jobs will be filled from inside, of course, but many, many times we will want to go on the outside to find the best person, compare that person with what we've got, and if it's a tie, the inside person is going to get it, and if it's close, the inside person is going to get it. But get the very best people possible in this university.
Yes, that'll work.
Thank you.
Professor Romano, thank you, President Gilmour. Thank you, Professor Vlasopoulos, and have a great day, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Night.